Hey, what's up, guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So today we're gonna be talking about finding the time. Okay, so the artist journey, making art just takes a long time, right? So often it is hard to find a time for yourself to create art, right? Life gets in the way, circumstances get in the way, right? So it can often be a really hard time finding the time to do it. You know what I mean? And I got a comment recently asking me like, hey, how do you find the time? How do you manage your time? And like, how can I improve within the time that I have to work, right? So that's what we talk about today. But before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and Patreon if you want to support the channel. Consider becoming a channel member. And with that, let's get into the video. So when it comes to finding the time, right, you really have to think about not just time, but energy as well, right? Because if you spend a lot of time doing something, you lose your energy over time, and then boom, when you want to work, then you're already fizzled out. Okay, right? So a lot of the times it's not really a like not having the ability to work within a certain time frame. It's actually just the lack of energy that is required for art, right? Art requires more energy than you think, okay? Because often when I'm working, and I'm sure when you guys are working, right, you maybe do a 3-hour session, and by the end you are exhausted, okay? Maybe not physically, but like maybe emotionally or like mentally exhausted. You know what I mean? Because making art requires a lot of brain power, okay? So having the energy to do those things, right, can maybe help you set a better time for yourself, okay? Knowing when you have more energy, knowing when you have less energy, right? And like applying those things correctly, right? So the person in the comments that asked me this question was someone who has very little time, has to work a lot, right? And is probably working all day, right? And in those cases, you don't have the time to or the energy to create, right? And that's what creates kind of like a bad situation if you want to, because then you'll feel guilty. You feel like you're not spending enough time, right? And that's where it's really difficult. You know what I mean? That's where it's really difficult because having a full-time job and doing art is for a lot of people an insurmountable task, right? Because they just don't have the energy to make something, and even when they do make something, it doesn't have the quality that they want or the progress they want because they lack energy. You know what I mean, right? And I'm sure there's people who are like superhumans that could like do it, but like from my experience, most people like can like have very hard time balancing both, right? Especially if you're a student, right? If you're a student and you're doing artwork, right, I would implore you, like, just focus in your studies, okay? You'll get way more out of it than if you try to work in between, right? If you have to work in between, then that's that's what it is, right? All I gotta say is, in that case, right, if you're a student, then that balance is gonna be much tougher, right? If you're not a student and you're just trying to draw casually or try to get better gradually, right, then we can work with that. On just a general basis, right, I would say try to set yourself 1 hour. Okay, we don't need to do more than that. We don't need to do like and less than that is like kind of like there's no point, right? So 1 hour is kind of like the happy medium between like not too short, not too long, right? And everyone could set an hour at some point, hopefully, right? Hopefully that's you. You know what I mean? And what I would do is, and this is what I told the other person, is work on a singular project, okay? A singular project that you are invested in that's going to take a lot of time. Not take a lot of time, but something that you could chip away at, right? The guy was more focused on doing like little studies and like like trying to improve anatomy and stuff like that, right? And kind of doing like homework kind of pieces, like practice pieces, you know what I mean? And all I gotta say is, like, I feel like you people could do that, but I find that a lot of people who do that eventually find themselves exhausted, find themselves disinterested in the work, right? What I encourage people is to make work that you want to invest in, okay, right? So that, like, whether like you really want to like gain something in the piece, or want to like not spend so much time on it, it doesn't really matter. Like, the investment is what matters. Like, the amount you care about the piece is what matters, right? Because if you care about it, then you're gonna come back to it, then, like, if you care, like, if you see it going well, then, like, it will finish, like, the piece will finish itself, okay, right? Practice pieces, like stuff that you're just doing, like studies and stuff like that, they're all fine and dandy, right? They do get you better, but at the end of the day, the motivation a lot of times is what's really important, okay? Because if you're highly motivated to finish a piece, there's a way higher chance of it being finished than if you don't care about it at all, if you're not motivated by it, right? And sometimes a piece can motivate you as you work on it, right? But in general sense, I would say that, like, you really want to work on something that you care about, okay? Because if you don't care about it, if it's just some random study, right, if you have no investment in it, then you're just gonna, like, it'll just be on to the next one, right? So that's my first advice. Really focus on, like, a singular piece that you could chip away at. If you have zero time, just chip away at that piece, man, and then, like, get it to a finish that you enjoy, something that you could be proud of, something that you could add to your arsenal and be like, hey, I did this, it was good, I'm proud of it, right? That's what's really important, okay? Because if you don't have that, then, like I said, the piece will just, like, who cares? Nobody's gonna finish it, and then you're left unsatisfied with yourself, and you're like, well, look, I can't finish this, and you go down on yourself. It's unnecessary, right? Speaking of which, this piece right here, I finished it last week, right? This piece was a mountain to climb. Probably took around, like, 1.5 to 2 months, right? And there was times where there was a real slog. There was times where I had to do a lot of things in between, right? But being able to get to a finish, I think shows, like, fortitude. It shows strength of will, and I'm happy with the piece at the end of it, right? I'm satisfied with it, okay? And that's something that is extremely valuable, okay, right? And why did I do that? Because I'm invested in the piece, right? I care about it. I want it to be finished. I have an idea and I want to see it through, right? So the dedication aspect is a big part of that, okay? So that could help mitigate the lack of time, okay? And, if you have a finished piece, I feel like you'll learn a lot more from that than if you just do little practice things over here, right? I feel like only really experienced artists should really be taking on those, like, challenges or whatever, right? Like Inktober, right? Like, I did Inktober during school, and that shit was a nightmare, okay? I finished it, I did it, okay? But it was like, it took so much time out of my day, and and it was just like I would do 2 hours every morning, right? And I also had to do, like, classwork and stuff like that, and it was a nightmare, dude. It was so difficult, right? And I learned a lot. I got a lot better with ink, right? But I sometimes, like, I would have to sacrifice my own, like, mental health and shit, just going crazy, doing this thing, because I have to do schoolwork, I do all this stuff, and I was, like, overly committed to it, right? And that's fine, you know what I mean? But that, like, I had to produce a new drawing every day and, like, finish it, and it's like, to me, that's insane, But, like, for others who are more experienced with ink or whatever, doing a drawing a day isn't so bad, right? Though I would still say, like, I'm sure it's still difficult for people, right? So that's why I think it's much more important to have something that you could chip away at, right? If you don't have the time, you could just just chip away at it every day, until eventually it's done and you're happy with it, and then boom, you can move on to the next one, right? Because it practices many skills, It practices, from the beginning to the end, right? Like, a lot of people, either have a problem with like starting a drawing or finishing a drawing, right? But I would see finishing a drawing is like much more difficult for people, right? So being able to get to that finish is very valuable and a skill worth having, right? Even if it's slow, you know what I mean? And that's another thing. Speed, okay? Speed is not important, guys, okay? Right? You want to do things correctly, okay? Speed comes with mastering how to do things correctly, okay? So, you'll be like, oh, maybe I'm slow, blah, 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 right? But if you do things in the right way, in the right order, and, like find your process, you could fine tune it, okay? Right? And eventually you'll be busting out shit real quick, okay? But focusing on speed is the incorrect thing, okay? You want to focus on quality, okay? You want to focus on doing things in the manner they're supposed to be done, okay? Right? I see people rushing a lot to try to save on time, and like a lot of times they'll like rush through the drawing, and then they'll get to the painting stage, and like it just goes into a mess because their drawing isn't solid, right? But yeah, that's besides the point. Okay, that's besides the point. Time management. Okay, time management. It is the ultimate skill. Okay, if you were to become like a professional, or if you want to actually make work and get it done, time management is key, dude. Okay. Here's how I look at time. I look at time as like 3-hour modules. Okay. Whatever your task is, or whatever thing you have to do within the day, it should take about 3 hours. Okay. Unless it's like work or something, right? But like the whole point is to space out the modules to understand what's happening during that day, right? So let's say like, if you want to go to the gym, right? You have like, oh, that's a 3-hour module, right? That like, of course it's not going to take 3 hours, right? But like, you go to the gym, you have to work out, right? Go home, take a shower, right? And then, that could take like 3 hours before you're ready, or 2.5 hours, right? Before you're ready to move on to your next task, right? And then like, let's say, now I want to go and get lunch, right? Like that's another 3-hour module, you know what I mean? Right? And, like, of course not actually 3 hours, right? But if like, let's say if things went awry, or you got like, you end up talking to someone, or you're hanging out with people, and like, that'll take 3 hours, you know what I mean? Right? Knowing knowing the modular system and how the modules work, right? Can really help inform your day, right? So let's say, if you have 24 hours in a day, you have 8 3-hour modules, right? How you spend those 8 modules is up to you, right? So if you need to spend 3 modules, that's 9 hours doing work, right? That means that you still have 5 modules to do other stuff, right? And that includes rest, okay? That includes sleep, you know what I mean? Right? So you need to learn how to space those things out, right? And often is the case that you will find a 3-hour module, where you have the time to do something, right? And like, know that now that you've spaced everything out, you know exactly what you're going to do throughout the day, right? You will find that you have extra time, right? And within that extra time, maybe you could squeeze out time into the work, okay? And that's what's really important, okay? So understand and space out your time, okay? Create a regular schedule for yourself, so you know exactly what time you're doing something and exactly how long it's going to take, right? And once you figure that out, once you like learn how to manage that time in this modular system, right? Then you can start really making good work. Then you can really start setting up time for yourself to do that work, right? And being disciplined enough to schedule these things out, right, can really, really help with time management. It could really help, and at the end result, it could really help your work, okay, right? Because art is time, dude. Art requires a lot of time. So that's another thing, right? If you're a student, if you're on assignment, right, and you want to figure out like, okay, so like I need to get this thing done on next week by whatever, right? How many modules is it gonna take for you to finish that piece, right? People think like, oh yeah, like 16 or like 15 to 20 hours, right? So 15 hours, that's about like 5 modules, right? 20 hours, that's like 7 modules, right? And if you have an entire week, you know, you have you need to find those 7 modules throughout the week to finish it, right? And of course sometimes you have less than that, but if you have less time than that, maybe decrease the size of the module and understand it, right? The modular system works so that you can increase or decrease and find the time to make these things, right? But the modular system is there to understand how you spend your day, how you spend your time, right? And another aspect, right, is of course you want, when you're working, you don't want to be distracted, right? An hour of focused work is worth 3 hours of unfocused work. Okay, unfocused work is like, it's the bane of every artist, dude. Okay, because we are easily distracted. We have a lot, and like in today's society, we have a lot of things to distract us, right? So, in your time, focus, get it nailed down, get a good session of work done, okay, and then leave, okay, and be happy with what the time that you spent in your zone, right? You know what I mean? And try to make it so that you're not forcing yourself. Okay, so you're not forcing yourself. Of course, you want to be disciplined. Of course, you want to, like, okay, well, I need to do it, so I'll do it, right? Sometimes that's important, right? But sometimes you need to leave off the pedal and be like, hey, I had a rough day, I don't have the energy, I don't have the time, I'm like slightly injured or whatever, right? And then that time, like, hey, now that module is about rest. You know what I mean? You change the module to rest. You know what I mean, right? Sometimes you may have extra time in this module to do work, right? Maybe this time you're like, oh, I'll reschedule the work here, and then I'll do I'll do reschedule art here, and then the rest of the time I can do whatever, right? But what I really encourage you is to have a regular time to work, okay, right? For me, I work from 1 to 4, okay? That's my usual work time, okay? About 3 hours of time, and it's worked for me, right? I keep my schedule, I keep at it, you know what I mean? I do it like 5 times a week, right? Some people may not have that, right? Your schedule may look different, but the whole point is that is your golden hour. That is the time in which you work, right? And if you do that, your body will understand, hey, this is the time to work, right? It will understand, like, hey, we know what's coming up, we're gonna do it. So you do this regular schedule, like however long, for however many days, right? You have break days, you don't have break days, it's up to you, right? But you have a regular time in which you work, okay? This is for you, but also for your muse, okay? For your muse to know, hey, this is when I'm supposed to be coming in. This is when the magic hour happens, okay? And so like that, everything within your space understands, like, this is the time to work, and like for your body to understand when you're working, okay? Right? It's so important, okay? And what you really want is that this is just a regular thing. This is just what you do at this time. Boom, 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 you get it done, right? And you chip away. It's not gonna happen in a day. It's not gonna happen in a week. It may not happen in a month, dude. Okay, but you chip away, and then eventually it gets done. Okay, and you stay dedicated to that thing, right? And then by the end, you have a piece that you could be happy with. Okay, and afterwards you're gonna feel kind of empty, right? But that's why you start on the next piece. You've already spent the time in between to think of what's your next thing that you want to do, right? And that way, you are in constant production, but at a rate that isn't gonna break you, okay? That you have the time to do, that you understand the time, okay? And you understand how you set your time, okay? Right? So important, okay? Time management, I'm telling you, it's the number one skill. It's the number one skill to have when you're an artist, okay? because otherwise, because everybody else doesn't have that, and when they don't have that, their life is in chaos, right? Time management creates order for your life and for your art. Okay, so I think we can end the video here, guys. Please, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and Patreon if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. With that, all that bullshit, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot. Alright guys, a little bonus for making it to the end of the video. I wanted to show off the piece, right? Again, this took really long time. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of figures, right? But you could go ahead, take a look, right? Let's take a look at the couple right there, right? You can see all the people. There you go. I think there's like 17 to 20 figures here, right? It was a lot of work, but I am very happy with the end product. Yeah, just wanted to show you guys just a little bonus for making it to the end of the video, right? All right, thanks a lot, guys.